Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MarineLord versus Mista. This is the final day of the Swiss stage of the $100,000 N4C tournament. Spawning in on the southern part of the map, we will have Mista playing as the English in red. And to the north, it is going to be the Mongols for MarineLord in blue. Mongols versus English on Arabia here to start with. This is going to be an interesting matchup to take a look at because we have seen how powerful Mista is with the English. On the other hand, we've also seen how dominant MarineLord is in this entire tournament. MarineLord is the only player in the tournament that has not dropped the set so far. He's currently at the number 1 spot in the Swiss bracket with a 4-0 standing, and I do believe that he already secured his number 1 spot as well. So, with that being said, the stakes for MarineLord are rather small, to be honest. There is a minimal amount of gain that he can get from winning this set, minimal amount of loss that he can suffer from should he lose it. This set is also somewhat relevant for Mista. He's mostly fighting for a seeding in the quarterfinals. MarineLord already has secured his spot in the semifinals, being the number 1 player in the Swiss bracket. For Mista, it's all about securing a slightly better seed for himself and potentially avoiding dropping down a little lower. So basically, the outcome of this set isn't going to determine that much. It's basically going to influence who Mista is going to face in the playoffs. With that being said, we could still be in for some fun games here. We're going to see how aggressively the players will press onto their strategies, but I would think that given the fact that the importance of this set is somewhat lower than usual, I would think that the players won't go for their super cheeky, super crazy strategies, and we're just going to see some very standard meta gameplay. The players will play around a little bit, see what they can accomplish against each other, but let's be honest, the stakes are not super high for this set. Still, it's MarineLord versus Mista, 2 excellent players out here, so I'm definitely hoping for some fun games to take a look at. Looks like MarineLord will be quite successful gathering the sheep at the beginning. He already dropped the pasture back at home, whereas for Mista, he's just going for the good old-fashioned standard English play here. I would be very surprised not to see him going for a heavy farming eco, which is the usual playstyle of Mista over here. Meanwhile, for MarineLord, it looks like he's not putting up any Dark Age aggression so far, Council Hall on the way for Mista. And on the other side, you gotta wonder what exactly MarineLord is going for, because he did not go for any kind of Dark Age aggression. Probably not even a good idea against the English, because by the time you can start doing damage, your opponent is going to have longbows to pick off your forward villager or your spearman. So you're probably best off just staying back at home going fast Feudal. MarineLord is a little slow to Feudal Age, however. Where are the resources at? It seemed like he just queued up like 6 villagers, and that's the reason why he didn't have the food. He had to cancel those, and now he's on the way to Feudal Age with the deer stones. He doesn't have a ton of sheep underneath the town center, so he's gonna have to get that con back with the sheep that's currently trailing him. Looks like he did not add an extra scout. Mista is also playing with just 1 scout, that's his usual playstyle, and he's dropping a mail. We all know what that's for. That's going to be for the farming eco of Mista. Since the stakes are not so high in this set, we can do a bit of a more sit back, chill type of casting. Because, as I said, it's not a life and death for either of these players to win this set. And I think a nice topic to talk about in this scenario is that Mista loves to place his farms around that mill right at the beginning with the English. He's very heavy on the English farming. And the fun fact about Mista is that he's a real-life farmer from Greece. Looks like he's going to lose one of the sheep following his scout. MarineLord is going to yoink the other one. Not exactly sure why Mista committed to this one. He's trying to stop that tower for a time being. And, well, if he had some longbows approaching, he could definitely start doing damage and even prevent that tower from going up. But the longbows are still very far away, so that scout probably won't accomplish much over here. So Mista is a real-life farmer. He's from Greece, and he's a really nice guy. One of my favorite people in the entire Age of Empires 4 community. Super nice guy, super handsome. He's always the type of guy that's very happy, very friendly. So he's an absolute gem in the community. And he's also an exceptional player, of course. So it's definitely a good accomplishment for him so far to be at the middle of the Swiss bracket. We'll see what he can do against MarineLord here. And it looks like MarineLord will be playing with Horsemen for the time being. It's actually possible, although somewhat unlikely, that the Mongol player plays with professional scouts. That's a quite old school build with the Mongols, because the Mongols can just add double scouts from the stable quite fast, ferrying the deer. Nowadays, the Mongols usually focus on the pastures and just sheep, but back in the days, the Mongol professional scouts build was actually quite powerful. I would think that MarineLord is just going for double horsemen though, just to repel the initial attack of those longbowmen. MarineLord trying his best to snap down Mr. Scout over here. He might actually get away with that, but with the longbows appearing on the battlefield, MarineLord is going to call off his con for the time being. Looks like the defensive tower is up on the Ovu of MarineLord. And the reason why that's quite important is because he wants to make sure that Mista isn't going to do anything cheeky with Spearman and Longbows, trying to burn it down. Looks like that was a cancelled barracks for Mista for a brief moment. He started building a barracks and then he deleted it. In that case, he's getting a full refund because the building wasn't damaged, and indeed, there is the foundation of the barracks that he cancelled, and now he's replacing that with a stable. In fact, not even just one stable, there's the second stable coming in from Mista. He's one of the players that loves the English cavalry the most. And part of the reason why that works so well for him in many cases is because people don't really expect the English to play with cavalry. Now, MarineLord is going to spot this, and I wonder if Mista is going to just cancel these. He cannot do that anymore. Because the moment MarineLord shoots these buildings with the con, if Mista deletes it, MarineLord is actually going to get the raid bounty for it. So he cannot do the same trick that he did with the barracks, just build it to 50% completion, delete it, and then get the full refund. Horseman, sort of gliding forward for a brief moment, now decided to start galloping instead of just gliding on the grass. Mista still heavy on the farming department, now adding a couple of horsemen himself. This is going to be an interesting scenario when it comes to the food economies, because both players will be heavily reliant on their static food economy. They're not expanding towards the berries. They're not expanding towards hunts. Mongols are just taking their own static food eco or own static food source, the sheep. And of course, the English will be taking the farming. So both of the players are right now building those up over here. But in the long run, that should be slightly more effective for the English. Not by a massive margin, however. And the big thing is that the Mongols, if they don't spend any resources on army, or they just spend minimal amount of resources like we're seeing here for MarineLord, he's going to get a very nice castle age timing over here. You see, even with just one pasture, MarineLord is piling up the resources for castle. And once he gets to castle age, it could be men-at-arms, it could be lancers for him. This is a good start for MarineLord, and he's in a good position to potentially have a fairly large window to push his opponent with, getting into castle age. Now, keep in mind that Mista oftentimes is going to switch gears, and after building up that farming eco, he's just going to unleash a full feudal age pressure, so MarineLord has to be cautious about that one, and needs to make sure he sees what Mista is doing. For now, he's harassing the lumberjacks a tiny bit. Longbows will just come in there to try and hold off those horsemen, and of course the con. It looks like Mista is going to call off his own cavalry as well, trying to push back MarineLord. But of course, MarineLord is just using this window to get to castle age. So really, at this point, for MarineLord, he's more than happy sitting back home. Looks like he did not finish that pasture over there. That's a little annoying. He could technically think about sending the pastures close to the Ovu, but given the fact that he isn't really committing to any army production right now, I would say that it's safer to just keep the pastures close to the town center. Now he pops the speed arrow, pulls away the cavalry from the forces of Mista. Mista does have quite a lot of horsemen over here, but he stopped making any army. Mista himself piling up resources for castle age, and you see that English farming eco kick in quite fast. The castle age times will actually be comparable for the two players, and it looks like we're going to have the step redout coming in for MarineLord, whereas on the other side, you should expect to see the King's Palace. And with the King's Palace out there, Mista can start building up a villager lead over the Mongol player, and he won't really fall behind when it comes to the quality of the army, because he's gonna be up to castle age at a comparable time compared to his opponent. Love the preemptive palings deployed by those longbows on the left side. That's going to make it much more difficult for MarineLord to just charge in on those gold miners. Those leftover longbows are deploying their palings, and as long as they're not moving, those palings stay there for quite a long time. So you see that's sort of preventing MarineLord from harassing those gold mines. At least it's making it much more difficult. Here comes the King's Palace for Mista. He's going to be quite a bit behind in terms of castle age timing. It's going to be like 30 seconds or so, but nothing really that's threatening him right now. MarineLord is up to castle age in a matter of seconds, whereas for Mista, he's going to need to wait about 30 more seconds for that. Mista is tempted to try and jump on that Ovu. He's been lurking with those horsemen out there. Now, with MarineLord up to castle age, we're seeing the first couple of lancers come in with double production. Archer range not popping out any units for the time being. And for Mista, he's got double stables, so he could go for his own knights. And it looks like we're going to have a prayer tent coming in here for MarineLord. He's going to start picking up those relics, and you see, the horsemen had to evade those palings over there. which made them just run into the town center fire, and ultimately, the villager fire and the town center fire, supported by the longbows, will pick off those two horsemen. The Khan is gonna be there to be annoying, because of course, now with Castle Age, that Khan is doing quite a lot of damage. Knights are coming in here for Mista, and Mista is going to just push away that Khan with his own horsemen. The horsemen actually outrun the Khan, which means that you could use those 5 leftover horsemen from Feudal Age to pursue that Khan, and that's exactly what Mista is doing. He's going to detach 4 horsemen to do that. Sneaky tower coming up in the middle. This is not something that MarineLord spotted, and that's going to be a nice staging ground for Mista, but more importantly, that's going to give him vision, so he knows exactly what MarineLord is coming up with. Still, Mista isn't really committing a ton of resources into army production. He wants to build a 3rd mill and surround that with farms as well. Currently, he has 2 villagers lead over his opponent. And for MarineLord, he just wants to capitalize on the map control, start picking up the relics. First knights arriving as we speak. Mista is going to be able to meet them on the battlefield with his own. And he actually gets a good surround with his own horsemen here, so he's going to be able to repel the attack of those knights. More pastures now coming in for MarineLord. Now that he's the one being the aggressor, he could definitely justify moving those pastures in the influence radius of the Ovu, but so far he hasn't done that. Looking at the food economy, that's head-to-head 675 for Mista, 645 right now for MarineLord. So you see the English farming eco, in terms of efficiency, at least for the time being, is comparable what MarineLord has with the pastures. In terms of other economy, MarineLord's eco is a tiny bit better, mostly based on the fact that he's got the step red out boosting his gold income. But the two players are pretty much head-to-head in terms of economy. And now you see MarineLord looping around, taking a look at those resources, the hunts, the gold mines, seeing whether or not his opponent already moved out towards those locations. Now Mista splitting up his cavalry. He's got the knights pursuing the knights of MarineLord on the right side, and he's looping around with the horsemen. He might try to peek and take a look at those hunts on the north. Could be looking forward potentially towards that stone mine, maybe checking if the opponent already ran out of stone on the Ovu and he built a new Ovu out there. Oh, Vololo attempt coming in here. Mista is going to jump on the monk. That is a long Vololo, but it's not going to go off. It was a little risky for Mista. He could have lost all 5 of those horsemen, but he calculated this one, and he was able to finish off the shaman before the conversion happened. So with that, MarineLord is going to lose one of his shamans out here. He's still the only one collecting relics right now, so it's just a matter of time until he secures the relics for himself. And it looks like there is a second town center that's being built by MarineLord, something that we're seeing more and more being done by the Mongols, especially when they fight against civilizations like the Abbasids or the English with the King's Palace. So MarineLord won't fall behind that much in terms of villager count. Horsemen of Mista are now coming into the base of MarineLord here. They are being pursued by 1 Lancer, so they should be pushed away for the time being. One thing that Mista was able to see, though, is the second town center being built. So now Mista knows that his opponent is also playing a second town center. Lancer is now coming in here for MarineLord. He is going to lose the Khan over here. That was a little sloppy from him. He did not expect the cavalry charge here from Mista, and it definitely caught him off guard. Loses the Khan over here, but he's going to be able to pull away the Lancers for the time being. Looks like the horsemen are fighting off the Lancer here, and the shaman will just casually run past them. So MarineLord is bringing back the second relic back home. Looks like we're having a second stable being added right now by MarineLord. He's still banking up a ton of stones, so he really did not inflict a lot of damage with those knights. And he's also not really committing a ton of resources to producing them. You see, MarineLord barely invested into a couple of Lancers. I think he made like 6 at maximum. Now, Mista is counterattacking with the knights over here. MarineLord down by 7 villagers, but the concerning thing for him is that Mista's army numbers are looking much better. And now you see those knights pushing back the ones from MarineLord. MarineLord's got a shaman over here that could be easily picked up by Mista. And indeed, Mista is going to push those shamans back into the base. Another shaman got picked off here. And now, you see the knights of Mista, the English knights, the well-renowned and famous English knights, getting so many kills on those villagers, the shamans, and suddenly MarineLord finds himself being overrun by all those knights out here. He's gonna have to garrison the 2 town centers, but they can only field 10 villagers inside that TC, which means that the knights are getting so much value for themselves, and Mista is not stopping. He's sending in wave after wave of knights, and MarineLord is down to 5 army. I think MarineLord is dead here. There is just no way that he's going to repel the next wave of knights coming in. He's struggling to access gold. MarineLord is completely out of food. All of his villagers on food are just in town centers right now, and with that, he is unable to replenish his new knights here. There is no crossbows coming in to help out, and Mista just keeps trickling in more and more knights. A Volo is popped over here by MarineLord. Is going to fail to get a single conversion, and at this point, of course, you can push back those knights temporarily with that Relic and the Monk, but you want to have some conversions because that's your only hope of holding this position. Mista waving his fist. He knows that he's got this, and MarineLord taps out. Big game here for Mista, and to a certain extent, it really felt like MarineLord wasn't really appreciating the ability of the English to pop out a lot of knights. This kind of knight production is very comparable to what the HRE would be able to do, and that's the same story. HRE has a powerful economy, and they just flood you with knights. They don't have anything special going for their knights in Castle Age, but they can just outnumber you very easily. And MarineLord had a ton of stone unspent, so he didn't really use that for double training, hence Mista was able to outnumber him with knights, and Mista takes a quite convincing game number 1 victory over here. On Arabia, MarineLord losing his access to Mongols, and we are now going to the first home map of MarineLord, which could be Altai or King of the Hill. Neither of those are being open maps. Once again, as I said, the stakes are not so high for this set, because at the end of the day, neither of the players are in the threat of elimination if they lose, and neither of the players are able to improve their position massively. But of course, it also comes down to, just getting a couple more games against a potential opponent in a future set. And of course, for Mista improving his seed, whereas for MarineLord, as I said, the stakes are minimal because he's already guaranteed the number 1 spot here. He's the only undefeated player in the entire tournament so far. So really, he's pretty much just playing for pride at this point. Welcome back to Mista versus MarineLord. We are going into game number 2, spawning in on the left side. We will have MarineLord playing as the blue in the French, and on the right side it is going to be French as well for Mista in red. The map is going to be King of the Hill, so French mirrors, a civilization matchup that one would expect to be very frequent on this map, simply based on the fact that French is the most obvious civilization pick for this one. But in many ways, it just didn't happen because everybody tried to counterpick the French. So you're seeing more of the Abbasid versus French or Mongols versus French matchups over here. At the beginning of the tournament, Mista loved to pick Mongols on this map. Now he's transitioning completely to French. Once again, we have to keep in mind that the strategies employed in this set are going to be less relevant to the tendencies of the players, simply because they're trying to conceal their strategies. They're both guaranteed their spots in the playoffs, and they cannot really modify their location even in the bracket anymore. Especially for MarineLord. For Mista, he can still shuffle around in terms of seeds, but for both of these players, the importance of this set is not enough to justify trying to go for their main key strategies. They're definitely hiding some strats for the playoffs now. With that being said, it looks like we are going to have quite a lot of sheep gathered here by MarineLord. He's operating with 1 scout only, and you're probably going to have 1 scout as well for Mista. Because in this matchup, French versus French, it's a massive decision to add 1 extra scout. The gain that you can have with an extra scout is that you can collect more sheep, and this is a very punishing mirror matchup. This is one of those mirrors where if the snowball starts rolling, you are going to be in trouble. So the thing is that by having extra sheep that you can get with the second scout, you have a lot more safe food under your town center. Meanwhile, on the other side, if you add an extra scout, you basically sacrifice a villager, and with that you delay your feudal age, which means that you will delay the appearance of your first knight. So that basically puts you in the defender's position, because if you send, by the time you get your first knight out, your opponent is going to have his knight at your base. So there's a trade-off that you take. Looks like both of these players decided to go for just 1 scout. Actually, it looks like Mista is going for 2. I wonder when he added that second scout. I don't think that he started the game with that. I think he might have added a couple of villagers before he added that second scout over here. He's going to have a quite decent scouting over here. Do note that the player POVs will always show these players to be blue, so don't get confused. Only 1 player is playing blue, and that's MarineLord, but in Mista's POV, he is playing blue as well. As you see, MarineLord up top. Below the name, there is a blue bar. That's his color, or around the face cam as well. So MarineLord is playing blue, and Mista is going to be playing red. School of Cavalry coming in for both players, as we do have a very exposed gold mine over here, actually, for Mista. Both of these players, of course, at the French can build some palisade walls, so they could technically prevent the enemy from harassing them. And for Mista, walling off this angle here would actually be pretty helpful. You might even justify walling this crossing here and just focusing all his efforts in this area, because this way, if he makes the walls up top that I suggested, he would have a gold mine rather safe, and then he could just focus on fighting in this area, that one crossing. So that could be something that you can justify. Meanwhile, on the other side, for MarineLord, his gold mine is also somewhat exposed, and he also has a fairly straightforward walling option here. Wall off the wood lines, and he's gonna be fine with that. So, both of the players have the option to secure their gold mines, and it looks like Mista is going to open up by harassing the gold miners of MarineLord here. When you have two scouts in a French mirror, that's definitely something that you can do and you should do, because even delaying your opponent's gold income by just a couple of seconds is something that can give you an edge in the night wars. So it looks like we're going to have the first knight coming in here for Mista. Let's see if either of the players will go professional scouts. It looks like it's going to be Wheelbarrow for Mista. Wheelbarrow already picked up by MarineLord over here. Speaking of professional scouts, Mista was the player that designed the professional scouts build order for French, so he was the first one using it, but this time around it looks like his scout is gonna be less than professional. He's going to be surrounded by the villagers, and it will be taken down. Easy kill for the villagers on the gold mine of MarineLord, and that means that Mista now loses that one scout that he added as an extra. First knight coming in right now for MarineLord. On the other side, you should expect the first knight to come in as well for Mista. This is one of the most punishing mirrors out there. You fall behind in knight numbers, it's very difficult to recover. So, oftentimes French mirrors end in like 10 minutes, simply because one player is going to start falling behind, and that snowball is extremely difficult to stop. Successful charge coming in here for Mista, but MarineLord doesn't care. MarineLord wants to get the villager kills on the gold mine. A charge and a sword hit is going to be enough to kill a villager here. So that's what MarineLord is going for, and that's the reason why Mista preemptively pulled his villagers away. Because he knows fully well that MarineLord won't care about the damage taken on the knight, he just wants to kill a villager. Looks like more villagers are being dispatched by Mista to the gold mine. For now, he's operating with just one stable, that's the School of Cavalry. Whereas on the other side, now MarineLord is adding scouts, so there is the professional scouts coming in. So, one of the advantages of going professional scouts in this setup is that you will have a ton of safe food eco. It's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, for your opponent to raid your food eco. Meanwhile, you see, Mista is going for the berries. He's dropping a second stable as we speak. So, the danger of going for the professional scouts, and that's the trade-off that you're taking when you do this, is that you're sacrificing your knight production for quite a time on the School of Cavalry, and that could mean that your opponent can have a very nice army advantage over you. Now, if you couple this with Spearman production for MarineLord, I think he's going to be fine, because he will be able to hold off those knights coming in. But you see, Mista is closing the distance between himself and those hunts that MarineLord is about to pick up, and he could potentially even deny the hunt here from the opponent. Looks like MarineLord is just now getting away with the first couple of carcasses. Mista was looking for the scouts over there, but he misses the patch that was being picked up by MarineLord. And in the end, MarineLord gets back with what seems to be 3 carcasses for the time being. First knights are now coming in here. Mista trying to get a charge in on those villagers. Nice reactions over there by MarineLord, jumping back into the town center. And it looks like those knights won't be able to do that much damage. Mista only at 6 military. In theory, that's 8 for MarineLord, but I do believe that most of that is just scouts, because you only see 1 knight and 2 spearmen right now for MarineLord. He's going to try and play with spearmen defense, but that's a tricky thing to do at the highest level, simply because those knights could come in from multiple directions and keep harassing you. Looks like it's going to be spearmen as well for Mista. The only deviation between the players' strategies right now is that Mista isn't going for professional scouts, instead taking the berries, whereas on the other side, MarineLord is picking up the hunt. And so far, MarineLord was successful doing that. So, it's a slight edge for MarineLord, I would say, right now. But of course, Mista is known for being able to amp up pressure really fast. For a long time, it seems like Mista isn't going to push you, and then suddenly he appears with a bunch of units, and you are in trouble. So, I wonder if Mista is going to play aggressive once again here, or potentially realize that his opponent is playing defensive and he could do the same thing. Looks like it's going to be double stables, 1 barracks for him, so he's going to have better production than his opponent, but his army numbers aren't looking very spectacular right now compared to MarineLord's one. Both players with Wheelbarrow, that's the only eco upgrade that they have. And the concern here for Mista is that MarineLord is getting close to Castle Age. So far, Mista wasn't really able to leverage the fact that he's got more knights than his opponent. He really was unable to inflict a ton of damage. He might be able to get a scout killed over here with a cavalry charge. He's pulling away the spearman. He's bringing in more of his knights right now. And he might take this fight against the spearman, actually. He's got 6 knights to fight this one with. And he could kill all the scouts. The spearman brace for impact, but that's going to be a second charge coming in. Once again, spearman bracing. But in the end, it is going to be 2 spearmen taken down. The scouts did drop the carcasses, so they will get back home alive. But of course, they won't be able to get those carcasses back to the town center. Looks like Mista isn't fully committing to this push either. He is piling up resources himself for Castle Age. Whereas for MarineLord, it looks like he's now adding a couple more knights. That's going to delay his Castle Age time quite a bit. He's got some spearmen back at home to defend as he's launching a counterattack against Mista's base. Mista's building a defensive tower on that gold mine, but that currently is still quite exposed, so there is a window here for MarineLord to do damage, and that's exactly what he's thinking about. He's coming in with the knights as we speak. On the right side, he's going for the gold mine, and here it goes. Successful charge should be able to take down one villager, a second villager goes down, and Mista was not expecting that counterattack. That's 2 villagers down here for Mista. Looks like 2 more villagers are being sent forward by Mist, and I just wonder if he actually wants to go for the boar. Not with 2 villagers, but it's possible he wants to kill it with the knights and then use 2 villagers to gather it. Although, I would assume that if you want to gather the boar, you send more vills. No, it's going to be a proxy barracks. Ooh. That's going to be cheeky from Mista here. Resource-wise, neither of the players are having a terrible time. MarineLord getting ready for Castle Age, he's a little low on gold, whereas for Mista he's got more gold but less food, so Castle Age times should be comparable. The question is what exactly Mista will be able to accomplish with that barracks, because it's going to help a lot reinforcing the spearman numbers on the battlefield, but of course it's going to take some time until it really comes into play. Castle Age will be coming in for both players in a matter of seconds, and that's not just 1 barracks, that's gonna be 3. And it very much seems like Mista is basically gambling on the fact that his opponent is going for full cavalry, and boy oh boy is he right. If MarineLord ever was thinking about going for archer ranges, which is not impossible, because he could think about going for arbaletier against the forces of Mista here, that would be risky for Mista to go for spears. But now he's got 4 barracks coming in. You gotta wonder if it actually will be men-at-arms, because that's also an option. If he's expecting spears from the opponent exclusively, men-at-arms could be a thing as well. Although he's gonna need some spearmen against MarineLord's knights. MarineLord, once again coming in with the knights, will be repelled swiftly as the guild hall is coming in for both. This could be a nasty push by Mista, because MarineLord has no idea. But it seems like it's just gonna be men-at-arms, because not a single spearman is being trained right now by Mista. Still, his food eco is being harassed by those knights. He's calling back his own just so that he can repel the attack here from MarineLord. Villagers on the hunt could also be a little bit exposed, but MarineLord won't be able to take them down. 4 barracks now out here, and there is 1 spearman that came out of the barracks, that's all. Guild hall almost completed, and if MarineLord goes for mass cavalry, mass spearmen over here could be devastating, so I'm curious to see if it's actually going to be mass spearmen or a men-at-arms play from Mista. I would think that if he wants to go mass spearmen, he would be making them by now. So the fact that he's waiting without anything being produced on those barracks makes me feel like he wants to go for men-at-arms once he gets to Castle Age. Looks like now he's starting to make units. He's seeing the knight numbers of MarineLord increase, so he's realizing that, oh shoot, I gotta go for spears, and that's exactly what he's going to do. And MarineLord invested a lot of resources into those stables that he's using right now, so MarineLord is committed towards the cavalry play for some time, and look at that. Mista is pulling those knights to the north intentionally. This is fully intentional for Mista. He wants to divert the attention of the opponent. He just wants to make sure that MarineLord has no idea about this forward. Now he's assembling what will probably be a ram push eventually. Mista is now adding some men-at-arms as well, so he's preparing for a couple of archers to be added. Better knight upgrade in for MarineLord. Mista himself hasn't gotten that upgrade yet, I believe. And he's gonna have to somehow fight off those knights and the spearmen breaking into his base. He has had issues accessing food for a long time, so he's got his guild hall set on food. Whereas for MarineLord, it's going to be on gold. MarineLord now hitting those villagers back at the southern part of the map. That should be 5 villagers being picked off by the knights over here. Looks like they turn back. Oh, nope, they don't. That's a beautiful move from MarineLord. He's just going to detach 1 knight to kill those villagers, and he's gonna be like, okay, I can just get the rest of my knights into the opponent's base, knowing that one knight is enough to kill that 5 villagers over there. And now he's pushing the base of Mista. Mista is in trouble over here, and you see the meta-terms are just now appearing, and MarineLord is like, oh shoot, I'm in trouble. But the numbers aren't spectacular there for Mista, and I feel like MarineLord is going to do so much more damage compared to what Mista is able to do. Look at the amount of villagers that Mista is forced to pull back into his town center, and for MarineLord, he's got a barracks so he can pop out a couple of men-at-arms himself. And now it looks like he's just going to massacre all the eco here for Mista. The spearmen, the knights, they're just pushing away all the forces of Mista. Mista's got basically no functional economy. 20 villagers in the town center, the rest of them running to the right side. And it looks like MarineLord was, for a brief moment, thinking about even burning down that town center. But for now, he's just going to focus on pushing away the villagers as much as possible. The colors are a little confusing, I'm not gonna lie, because each player has blue as his POV. But as things stand, it looks like the mana-terms are actually doing quite a lot of damage. And wait a minute. Did I confuse the colors because the POVs were switching? It's Mista who's killing villagers. It's Mista who is killing villagers now. It's very confusing that the colors were flipped when we are switching to player POVs, but, well, that's not much I can do about, because I'm not the one controlling the camera or the production. And is Mista pulling a forward castle right now? He seems to be all in into this one. He has managed to kill quite a lot of villagers from MarineLord, so the villager count is still that even. For a long time I thought it's MarineLord killing Mista, but boy oh boy, is that the other way around. Oh no, the villagers are getting intercepted, and that's going to be a ton of dead vills here for Mista. He really seemed like he wanted to go for either just a commitment and try to burn down the landmarks, or he wanted a forward castle. It doesn't have stone. It seemed like he wanted the forward castle, because that's when you pull that many villagers, but nope, it's more desperate than that. He wants to burn down the landmarks, but this is not a fight that he can win, and he knows that. Like, that's full desperation mode. Which is surprising, because he's not that much behind. He's now losing villagers left and right, of course, because he's using them as combatants. But, let's be honest, I was hoping that it's gonna be at least a castle, so, you know, you're going to have a chance for Mista, but I'm not gonna lie, pulling all your villagers to burn down the opponent's landmarks is gonna be insufficient over here. It would be a massive miracle if Mista was able to pull this off. He's got some men-at-arms over here. He's got some knights, but he doesn't have spears against the opponent's knights here. And you will see all of the forces of Mista disappearing from the battlefield. Not exactly sure what motivated Mista to just commit to this one. Maybe he started losing his food villagers and realized that, oh shoot, he's in trouble. Mista types the GG, I'm fairly certain. And with that, Mista is going to resign. MarineLord evens the series out. Was a little confusing of a game, because when we were looking at the player POVs, it was a little confusing to see which player is which. And for a long time, I seriously thought that it's MarineLord raiding the opponent's eco here, and that wasn't the case. It was actually Mista doing so much damage to MarineLord's eco, but MarineLord himself managed to pick off some villagers at the beginning, and with that, Mista felt like he needs to push this one right now. Tried the landmark snipe, didn't work out. Now it's a 1-1 scenario. Mista taking a loss over here with the French, and we will have a French victory as well for MarineLord. King of the Hill falls into the hands of the #1 seed right now in the bracket, and we'll be awaiting the next home map selection of the players. That will be Mista's home map, either Hy-Vee or Lipany, so 2 open maps. I'm curious to see what Mista has on his mind, because now English is gone for him, French is gone, Mongols is still available for him, Abbasids are still available. For MarineLord, he has lost French and Mongols, so he needs to go for something like Abbasids, HRE maybe, English. On Hy-Vee, Rus is also an option. For Lipany, I would think it's going to come down to English or Abbasids. Probably Abbasids. And I'm curious to see what Mista is going to do to potentially counterpick those. Welcome back to MarineLord versus TheMista. This is game number 3 coming up in this best of 5 in between the 2 AoE 4 legends, so to say. Both of these players having made a large name for themselves in the first couple of months of Age of Empires 4, and they're almost part of AoE 4 history. Now, one thing that they do have in common is that they never won an S-tier 1v1 tournament so far, despite the fact that they consistently perform at the top level. So, will be interesting to see if MarineLord or Mista is able to get there in the end here in N4C. Spawning on the left side, we'll have MarineLord playing as the Holy Roman Empire in blue, and on the right side, it is going to be the Abbasid dynasty in red for Mista. You get the feel that, you know, the Abbasid is the obvious safe pick on Lipany, whereas for HRE, that's the off-meta selection for MarineLord. Now, I do want to remind you that, once again, The importance of this set is way less significant than some others, which means that the players will be hiding some strategies. It's possible, it's very possible that MarineLord is picking HRE here because he doesn't want to show his hand. He doesn't want to show that, hey, if I expect you to pick Abbasids, which as I said is the obvious safe pick given how many berries are available on the map and given that the deli is banned all the time, so it's possible he just doesn't want to show his enemies that, hey, this is the civilization I would pick against you. So he's just picking a generally decent civilization, the Holy Roman Empire. It's not a bad civ to play with by any means. As you see, MarineLord's POV right now in Dark Age. Not exactly sure why the resolution is so low on this. I'm not even sure if MarineLord is playing at full HD. That's a good question. It's possible that this is a production thing, so, the production crew isn't able to receive a full HD feed from MarineLord's computer. But the image seems to be very blurry. It's actually possible that MarineLord is not playing at a full HD resolution, because if you look at Mista's POV, he definitely has a much clearer picture. And this was a thing that's returning when it comes to MarineLord's POV, so this would be an interesting question in an interview, whether he actually plays at a full HD resolution or what. House of Wisdom up already for Mista. He is going for the sheep at the beginning, which means that he's not really touching his berries. But this also accelerates his Feudal Age a tiny bit, simply because he doesn't have to invest into that mill at the beginning. One of the big decisions points with the Abbasids is that if you invest into that mill, you also have to make a lumber camp, a House of Wisdom, a house, and a mining camp for gold at the beginning, and you will basically be unable to afford all of that, so you will probably have to give up on the lumber camp at the beginning. Not the end of the world, but it actually slows down your Feudal Age time a tiny bit. It's a decision point, and it seems to be slightly more effective to take the sheep first and then go for the berries, but it also depends on how exposed your berries are and how fast you want to start gathering them. So for now, Mista decides to go for the sheep first and only after go for the berries. He's going to start mining stone, which is going to be spotted by MarineLord, and I think what MarineLord wants to do, plain and simple, is just capitalize on the fact that his opponent is likely playing 2 town centers. And if the Abbasids are playing 2 town centers, what can the HRA do? Just go fast castle and start picking up the relics. And that's exactly what could be on the mind of MarineLord here. Now, he's not mining any more gold, so it's possible he's going to try playing with some more horsemen, just to control the map a tiny bit. Mista is going to play with a couple of horsemen, so MarineLord is going to need to make some sort of reaction to that. It could be horsemen, so it's just going to be an even horseman war in the middle, or it could be just spearmen. That depends on what MarineLord thinks his opponent is going to do, because if it feels like Mista could do a lot of pressure on him, then it makes a little bit more sense to go for spearmen. If he just feels like Mista is going to poke around with a couple of horsemen, he can just make his own and be fine with that. He might even just ignore the fact that Mista has a stable. Fresh foodstuffs upgrade coming in right now for Mista as he's queuing up the first horseman. Response from MarineLord will be 2 stables for the time being. Of course, I would be somewhat surprised if he went for a super heavy aggression in Feudal Age, especially given the fact that he's mining quite a lot of gold. If he wanted to go full horseman gameplay here and spend a lot of time in Feudal Age, he wouldn't be mining this much gold. So MarineLord likely wants to get to a fast castle or a semi-fast castle over here, but he's going to make a couple of horsemen just to make sure that Mista cannot surprise him. Mista, on the other hand, is piling up the stone he needs for the second town center, so good old-fashioned Abbasid stuff working out for him. Mista has a very low amount of sheep to work with underneath the town center, so he's gonna be very much dependent on those berries, which, by the way, are quite exposed, so Mista has to be careful not to lose access to them, thanks to the horsemen of MarineLord. MarineLord piling up the gold and food he needs for Castle Age. He's going to encounter the first 2 horsemen in the middle. Bit of a dancing will begin. It's worth noting that MarineLord, if he loses some HP on that horseman, he can still send it back home, use the prelate to heal it up, so he's got that option. Whereas for Mista, any damage that he takes is going to be permanent for a long time. Looks like MarineLord isn't really committing to a lot of horsemen. Mista saw the 2 stables, so Mista has to start adding some army, making sure that MarineLord isn't going to be able to raid him. But MarineLord basically just added 1 horseman over here and he's done with this. He's going up to Castle Age, and in Castle Age is going to be the time frame where he's going to start using those stables. He will play double stable knights, and that's going to be difficult for Mista to stop, and this is something that Mista has to prepare for. Looking at the relic spots, those are relatively even. You do have 1 relic in this corner, 1 in between the 2 players on the left side, 1 in this southern corner completely neutral, and 1 on the right side. And it looks like Mista is about to wall in the 5th relic on the map. He's going to have a wall up on the right side, and that will make it very difficult to capture this final relic. Looks like Mista is appearing on the battlefield with a couple of horsemen. He's going to harass MarineLord a tiny bit, but MarineLord has gathered enough gold for himself for now, so he doesn't really have to worry about that gold mine being temporarily lost. Mista still poking around with the horsemen. He's currently possessing just a one villager lead. The double town center play is yet to kick in for him, and it looks like MarineLord isn't too stressed about the horsemen pushing him. You see, he isn't really adding any horsemen, he's just waiting for the knights in Castle Age. He didn't really move out to the prelates just yet, however, and one of the things that Mista is able to accomplish with those horsemen being around the base of MarineLord is that MarineLord wasn't able to move out for the relics yet, or he just didn't want to risk it. MarineLord could have potentially snuck out with the prelate, but it would have been risky, and now I would expect Mista, upon seeing his opponent hitting Castle Age, just distributing his horsemen across the map, camping down those relics, trying to intercept some prelates out there. Looks like the prelate is going to heal back the scout that was fighting off the horsemen, and now knights are being queued up by MarineLord. Very standard HRE stuff over here. He's going to start moving out towards the relics, although he hasn't really been aggressive gathering them. Meanwhile, on the other side, Mista is just now building up his villager lead. He's very far away from Castle Age, and that could be concerning. Looks like we're going to have some camel archers being added. Camel archer horseman is a scary composition, even for heavy cavalry, because keep in mind that camel archers do quite a lot of damage even to heavy cavalry, and they do debuff the knights of Mista. Still, I think that camel archer horseman in Feudal Age isn't able to beat mass knights. Looks like on the left side, the prelate is about to pick up a relic. There's a scout overlooking that for Mista. Why is there a healing icon above that prelate? That looks like a bug, because that was a full HP prelate out there. But anyways, he's going to pick up the relic, and he's going back home. It's not actually getting actively healed, it's just the icon being stuck on top of his head. Horsemen are now being dispatched by Mista. He's trying to intercept that prelate that's bringing back the relic, and indeed, that's going to be the case. The horsemen are coming in. I think the prelate could pop the Vololo. Indeed, that should be able to discourage the horsemen for the time being. Knights are still around, but the horsemen will come back on that prelate, and I don't think that the prelate is going to make it back home, or is he? The knights are still nowhere to be found. They're coming in right now. Their charge is going to be devastating, and with that, the prelate will make it back home. Key move over here. You don't really want to lose that prelate. Now the horsemen, however, still harassing the berry villagers of MarineLord, and one thing that MarineLord doesn't have a steady supply of is food. He just managed to bring in the first relic, so the Regnis Cathedral, while it's helpful, it's not a spectacular amount of resource income right now. And the concerning thing for MarineLord is that making more knights will be difficult when you don't really have access to food. First barracks now being placed by Mista. He's going to start popping out spearmen. And for now, MarineLord is going to be sitting on one relic, but gathering the additional relics is going to be quite difficult, especially when he is continuously raided by those horsemen. Mista is using his numbers advantage very well. He doesn't want to take a direct fight, he just wants to pick off villagers left and right. He fails to intercept those two prelates being sent south though, and that's going to be big for MarineLord. Looks like MarineLord is going to get out of his base with those prelates at least. In a direct engagement, those horsemen don't stand a chance against the Castle Age Knight, so this is going to be a fight that eventually will be won by MarineLord. Mista cannot take direct fights, he can just keep raiding, and looks like Mista also will be facing quite a lot of raids going on from MarineLord, because MarineLord sent forward the counterattack over here. Indeed, here it goes. It's going to encounter some spears, but minimum amount of spearmen can be found here by Mista, and it looks like we're going to have the knights pushing away the villagers from the berries. So the first counterattack here is successful by MarineLord, and he also managed to pick up a second relic. Now he's going to start raiding the gold miners. Mista is up by 11 villagers right now, but that should soon decrease because those knights are doing quite a lot of damage over here, and they're just outrunning the spearmen right now. They're able to inflict quite a lot of casualties on the eco of Mista. Phalanx upgrade just now coming in for Mista, so he's trying to buff up those spears as much as possible. He's not really far away from Castle Age anymore, but he doesn't have the gold right now because his gold mine had to be abandoned. And is that a GG being typed by Mista? Is that a GG being typed on the face cam? Yes, it is. Looks like Mista is tapping out of this one. He feels like he's getting raided left and right, and he probably is saying, look, I cannot really access the gold now, and I'm just going to be beaten to the relics. He probably tried to deny the relics, and he's aware that his opponent, the HRE, got 3 relics already, potentially more than that. The knights are raiding his base. Mista wasn't completely dead, and I'm not gonna lie, if this was, let's say, the grand finals, or if this was a decider game in a very important set in the playoffs, then he probably would have played on. But in this scenario, it was looking grim, and he just said, okay, I don't think I have a chance. And realistically speaking, his situation was rough, because MarineLord just kept trickling in the knights, and wave after wave of knights would be difficult for the Abbasids to hold off over here, especially given the fact that the gold was missing for Mista to get to Castle Age. And of course, the HRE player already had 3 relics, or at least he was very close to grabbing 3. And from that point on, the Ragnis Cathedral is just going to start kicking in. So rather quick win over here for MarineLord. And with that, we're going to have a 2-1 scoreline right now. MarineLord, if he wins the upcoming game, he's going to remain undefeated in the Swiss stage of N4C. He's currently 4-0, and he's 1 game away from becoming 5-0. Welcome back to MarineLord versus TheMista. This is game number 4 coming up. We have MarineLord moving into match point as he's going to be playing the Abbasids up north in blue. And down south, we're going to have Mista playing as the Mongols in red. This is the second home map of TheMista, which is Highview, a map where the Abbasid dynasty is an interesting choice from MarineLord because it's not something that's very commonly picked. Whereas for Mista, the Mongols pick, in many ways, could be a counter pick potentially to the Rus that could have been picked by either of the players, because keep in mind, Rus is still a popular selection on Highview given the fact that you can get so much bounty for yourself. So there might have been some mind games going on over here, but Mista of course loves his Mongols, why not pop it out right now? He's going to have the Ovu right next to the town center, which is a great spot for this one. This means that the pastures that he's building will be super effective. But there is no gold mine close to the town center, which means that he's gonna have to make a Gur in Dark Age. Meanwhile, on the other side, looking at the MarineLord base, we will have, once again, we're switching into now Mista's POV, and now Mista's POV is also low resolution. So it seems to be a production thing right now that the players do have sometimes low resolutions when it comes to the POVs. It's not something I can influence. I'm getting the same image as you guys do, so, well, it is what it is. But it's interesting to see that every once in a while, we're seeing some low resolution image received from these computers. Not exactly sure why, because they're using the identical computer compared to the previous game, so, well, previous game it looked like full HD for Mista and a bunch of pixels for MarineLord. Now it's looking like a bunch of pixels as well for Mista. Well, at least it's consistent because now it's a bunch of pixels as well for MarineLord. Anyways, looking at MarineLord, he is going up with the economy wing as you would expect. He's waiting for the button to be pressed. He's like, come on, drop off the food. He's at 57 heart rate right now, and it just increased to 69, 76. What's happening? The moment he pressed the age up button, his heart rate jumped from like 50 to 80. I wonder if it's actually just the indicator being wrong. And this is provided by a smartwatch company that's sponsoring the event, and it might have been just a very low count because the measurement was off, and, you know, the consistent heart rate is going to be 80. That being said, we're back on track with the casting overlay, finally, so we can take a look at the entire map. For now, Mista is mining gold himself, of course, using the Gur right next to the gold mine, and he's on the way to Feudal Age with likely deer stones, whereas for MarineLord, as standard as it could possibly be, or is Mista on the way to Feudal Age? Hang on. Hang on. Mista is not going Feudal yet. Did he run out of food? Mista has a surprisingly low amount of sheep underneath his town center, and his food count is disturbingly low for a player that did not pop out any Dark Age Spearmen, or a player that did not pop out Deer Stones just yet. So the Feudal Age timing for Mista is going to be somewhat underwhelming over here. Now, Mista potentially could play a fast castle build over here, just delay the Feudal Age timing and then go straight to castle. But this seemed to be a little surprising start over here for Mista. Curious to see what exactly he has on his mind. Oh, the silver tree. Oh, the silver tree. This is something that Mista tried in a set yesterday as well. And he really wants to make those traders work. But against the Abbasids, that's actually a good idea. because the traders will start to return their investment immediately. This is an attempt that he tried to make before. The traders in here is a high risk, high reward scenario. If the opponent isn't really attacking them, they are going to return their investment really fast. But if there is any kind of army on the battlefield from MarineLord that could potentially harass them or kill them, then Mista is going to be screwed. So this is going to be tricky for Mista to pull off, but he's going to have the silver tree right next to the town center. It's going to be safe there. It's quite far away from the neutral market, so the return value is going to be quite big as well per trip. And the most important thing is that the Ovu is right next to it, so he's going to be able to use his double training on this one. So the idea here is that the Abbasid player needs to get some time until he's able to drop the second town center, and until he's able to get the return value from the second town center. He needs to drop the second TC, he needs to build up his villager count, and only after that will he be able to leverage the fact that he's got a stronger eco. Whereas with the silver tree, you can get those traders up really fast, and it is much easier to get the return value for that investment compared to the Abbasids. That's the theoretical concept of this play here. Looks like the villager does survive here, and I wonder where the villager was heading here for MarineLord. He seems to be moving forward. It's possible he tried to tower his opponent's wood line even, because if Mista is not putting up any signs of aggression, might as well try to sneak a tower up on the opponent. Arrow slits and placements coming up here for Mista. He's already preemptively towering across the map. And it looks like the scout of MarineLord hasn't spotted that silver tree just yet, I do believe. Second town center coming in here for MarineLord. Mista for the time being is going to be aware of that, and there is another wolf that was aggroed by the scout. MarineLord has to be careful because it's possible he's pulling that villager to wall in the market or just drop a tower there. And if he can sneak a tower up on that market, that can completely cripple the trading. And that's the deal here. There is no fallback options. It's not like a berry patch. It's not like a gold mine. There is nowhere else to go. You get that market denied from you, and you cannot do anything with those traders pretty much. Well, in theory, there is a second market that they can use up here, but I'll be very surprised if Mista was able to get his traders all across the map like this without getting them killed by MarineLord. Looks like MarineLord did lose the forward villager, however. We didn't see the actual villager getting killed, but there were multiple towers nearby, and I don't see the blue dot anymore. So MarineLord tried to potentially tower or wall in that neutral market. That did not happen, so he's now adjusting his plan. He's going for double stable horsemen. Mista, for a brief moment, he seemed like he was making an archer range, so I wonder if he's thinking about Mangodai potentially, which is not impossible for the Mongols here. It's going to be a barracks now, so it's just going to be for a couple of spearmen. With the Yam network, of course, he's going to be able to adjust the positioning of those spearmen quite fast, and if he spreads them out across the trade, it's going to be difficult for the horsemen to get kills on the traders. Mista already coming in with quite a lot of trade cards, so if you see the eco numbers, it's already 36 as opposed to 28 from MarineLord. That's the concept of having the traders over here. You're going to have way larger numbers of eco at the beginning of the game, and you are getting the return of your investment much faster. Traders now getting back to the silver tree, delivering only 26 gold per trip though. The distance isn't too spectacular, and it's going to delay Mista getting the actual return value for that investment, because with those traders you ideally want to have at least 30, 40, 50 per trip. 26 per trip is not bad, but not very spectacular either. Here come the first horseman from MarineLord. He wants to start picking off those traders. He's going to accompany those horsemen with one scout, so he's gonna have a vision to spot if there's any spearmen coming nearby. Khan pops the speed arrow so the spearmen can catch up with the horsemen, and it looks like it's the horsemen that start to poking down all of those traders. For now, MarineLord is being cautious, but you see he's going to have the mobility advantage, and he's going to start trickling in more and more horsemen into the trade. And as MarineLord is pulling the spearmen to the right side, the new horsemen will appear on the left, and the moment the spears move to the left, the horsemen will come in from the right. So from this point on, you're going to have the horsemen of MarineLord running circles around those traders, trying to find an opening, trying to pick one of them off. Now, the truth is that so far, MarineLord was quite unsuccessful doing this, and Mista is piling up a respectable amount of resources in his bank. So, as things stand, it's possible that Mista is going to be able to even beat his opponent to Castle Age here at this point, because MarineLord, now adding quite a lot of eco from the two town centers, he's catching up in terms of economy count, Oh, Camel Archers. That's a good addition here for MarineLord. We've talked about this before. Camel Archers are very effective against Spearmen. They take down a standard Spearman in Feudal Age with 2 shots. So they're a very good and high mobility unit that is capable of dealing with Spearmen, and it's a very good auxiliary unit to support your Horsemen with. So Horsemen plus Camel Archers will be very difficult for Mista to deal with here, especially because the Camel Archers will also be very effective pursuing and taking down those traders that are escaping. Mista still far away from Castle Age over here, and you see the first Camel Archers are now being sent forward. Mista sent a couple of Spearmen to check out what his opponent is doing. But at this point, the question is, how much damage can MarineLord do on the traders before Mista can leverage the traders? Looks like the Khan is running straight into the TC fire here of MarineLord. That was a bit of a miss micro here by Mista. He might have just misclicked his Khan, but that was picked off so easily. He probably wanted to scout the opponent, but just ended up getting killed here. And now the Camel Archers and the Horsemen are coming in. Spearmen are out here in quite decent numbers, and the Spearmen will do bonus damage against the Camel Archers, but the Camel Archers will also be very effective picking off spears. And you see MarineLord is just waiting for an opening here, trying to find an angle to hit those traders from. Looks like he's now picking off the spears, picks off one, will be focusing down the others. He's gonna have to constantly retreat, and you see MarineLord is going to be facing a new tower over here as well. But now Mista is realizing that he could be in trouble here, because if the Camel Archers are picking off the spears quite rapidly, Mista still keeps double training the Spearmen, so he's just reinforcing this trade over here, delaying this one as much as possible. But if there are any reinforcements coming in here for MarineLord, it's gonna be awfully difficult for Mista to hold this position. He's gonna have a second tower up, and he's going for the arrow slits emplacement on it. And so far, he was able to keep his trade alive, which is quite an accomplishment, I must say. MarineLord has been putting up a lot of pressure on that trade, but Mista wasn't really aware of that until the Camel Archers showed up, yet he still was able to get all the towers up, and now his trade is actually very safe. One of the problems that Mista is facing, however, is that he doesn't really have the food to go up to Castle Age, which is going to delay his progress quite a bit. He's got the gold, but not the food, and MarineLord is now banking up resources for Castle Age. Even more importantly, he's got the Camel Archers and the Horsemen, still a unit composition that's capable of potentially pushing that trade. A forward tower here will be burned down in all certainty by MarineLord, and that's going to limit the vision that Mista has. Remember, Mista also lost his Khan. The Khan is almost back on the field. It's like 20 seconds wait left to go for Mista. Mista's getting close to Castle Age, and given the fact that he's got the Silver Tree, he can also balance out his eco using that. But of course, he's going to be heavy on the gold. He's not going to have a spectacular food income for the time being. MarineLord is going to press that Castle Age button a little faster, probably with the Culture Wing. All of those towers protecting the trade do have arrow slits on them, but now MarineLord is getting close to that critical mass where he can just dive underneath towers, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's sending in the Camel Archers, trying to pick off the villagers here. He's going to focus down the Spearmen now, and once the Spearmen are gone, his Horsemen can start rampaging the eco here. MarineLord is going up to Castle Age. Mista is not, if I'm not mistaken. First tower gets taken down. There is still a couple more to go, and those towers will be able to push away MarineLord's forces for the time being. But it looks like MarineLord is committed. He wants to jump on that second tower out here, and there isn't really a lot of army here for Mista to hold him off. Spearmen were hiding inside the tower here, but as they pop out, the Camel Archers will focus them down, and this is a fight that MarineLord can win, and he knows he can win this one. He's going to try to take this fight underneath the tower. He's going to fight off all the villagers that were sent to repair the tower, and all the army here for MarineLord is going to wipe out basically everything that Mista has left. And now the Camel Archers can start picking off those traders. It's very easy to catch those traders with the arrow fire from the camels, and of course the Horsemen will also jump on those traders. The traders are trying to jump into the towers here just to minimize the casualties, but you get the feel that Mista is not going to get this trade going, and if he's not going into Castle Age, he's in trouble. Looks like MarineLord's army is getting cleaned up over here, but the value that he has gotten out of these Feudal Age units is quite decent. He's going to lose the Horsemen, he's going to lose the Camel Archers, but he managed to take down a significant portion of Mista's trade here, and now his economy is much better. It's 67 eco versus 54. He's still not in a spectacular position, but he was able to inflict quite a lot of damage at Mista, and now Mista Is he going up to Castle Age? Not yet. He's piling up resources for it, but he's now low on gold. And remember that he was focusing his gold income and he's basing that on the trade. So he didn't really have a lot of gold miners. He's just now starting to adjust to gold mining. Traders are back on track. So with the next patch or the next sort of delivery of gold from the market, they should be able to give enough for Mista to get to Castle Age. But I wouldn't be surprised to see some Lancers come across the field here from MarineLord. Indeed, that is the case here. He's grabbing the Preservation of Knowledge upgrade as well. And now the Lancers can afford to just dive underneath the towers and keep killing those traders. This is the problem here for Mista. He's always the defender, and he's yet to get to Castle Age. And once MarineLord arrives with the Castle Age Knights, it's going to be very difficult for Mista to stop those. For now, this is a decoy on the right side by MarineLord, harassing Mista a tiny bit, making him fall back to that tower. Bit of a villager poking around. MarineLord gets a villager kill, and now Castle Age is coming in. I think that's the Kuroatai that's coming up for Mista. He has usually aged up with the Kuroatai when he is using the Silver Tree, and that's exactly the case. He's going for the Kuroatai, first couple of Lancers coming in. The problem with this Kuroatai build here is that the Kuroatai needs two things. First of all, damage units. Second, a con. Now, the con is available right now, but the reality is that Mista's got 9 armies, so what are you even going to heal? Like, you could potentially heal your traders. I assume it heals nearby eco units as well, not just army, but it looks like now we're gonna have a big fight unfolding here. Enough spearmen is provided by Mista here to try and repel this attack, and that should be enough against the Lancers, but on the other side you also have some cavalry coming in, and you're just seeing Mista's eco being ground down. Mista is up to Castle Age, but he's constantly getting raided left and right by the Lancers. His eco is slowly being ground down, and the next wave of Knights is yet to come. So you see a constant trickle of Lancers through the map here by MarineLord, and he will just keep picking off those villagers, keep picking off those traders. If you look at Mista's resource income per minute, that's very much indicative of the pressure that he's facing in his eco. His villager numbers, or more likely economy numbers, are there. 61 economy units, many of which are traders, but the amount of pressure that he's facing basically means that he's really struggling to keep those workers working. Looks like MarineLord is regrouping over here. He's grabbing some economy technologies for himself. He's got wheelbarrow. He's now grabbing the lumberjacking upgrade. He has gotten the second range defense upgrade, so he's now going to have a pretty high survival rate against the tower fire. And here comes the cavalry. It looks like now MarineLord is realizing that pushing the trade might not be a possibility, but pushing the food eco is a reality, and that's exactly what he's going for. Mista's still adding quite a lot of traders over here for himself, but now MarineLord is going to commit against this one. Mista's got some cavalry here to fight this one, but if the camel archers can focus down the spearmen, this is going to be a big win here for MarineLord. MarineLord's got the numbers advantage, some more Lancers are coming in, and the army for Mista is just disappearing in just the blink of an eye. There is nothing defending those traders right now. All the traders will start going down. MarineLord is overrunning Mista's eco, and I do believe that Mista will resign in a matter of seconds. In a set that wasn't really important for either of these players, we have seen some okay games, but I'm not going to lie, this wasn't the best set I've seen in Age of Empires ever played. It really seemed like both of the players were content with their position in the brackets. Of course, MarineLord couldn't even do anything about it. He's in the #1 spot, so he's just going to play very standard, see what he can do. Mista's going to tap out, but as I said, despite the fact that MarineLord is going to win this one, we just have to chalk up another win for him. He's going to stay on the top of the bracket. MarineLord takes the win. Mista is going to settle with the defeat over here, but I'm not going to blame the players for this one. You could see that they weren't really going full tryhard in his, and I don't blame them. Both of them have their respective positions in the playoff bracket, and now they're preparing for the playoffs, which is going to be on Friday, for Mista at least, because he's going to be playing in the quarterfinals. MarineLord, being undefeated here, he's at 5-0. He is going to get straight into the semifinals, so he's only going to play Saturday, I do believe. So for MarineLord, his entire accomplishments throughout the entire tournament will put him to the #1 position, regardless of the result of this one. But this way, he just remains undefeated, and he's looking like he's in great shape for the playoffs. Whereas for Mista, he could have adjusted his seed based on a slightly better performance here, but he probably decided not to go full tryhard, not to reveal any possible strategies for his playoff run, and he just said, okay, I have my spot in the quarterfinals, might as well just play a tiny bit here, maybe even experiment with strategies. It's possible that he tried this Silver Tree play again, saying, look, It didn't work yesterday. I'm going to try it again, see if I can make it work. Because if he can make it work, it's definitely something that he can potentially count on as a strategy in the playoffs. But I think it's getting more and more obvious that while the idea is great and clever, it's not really going to work against the Abbasids. And with that, he's going to take the loss here on Highview, and the entire set falls into the hands of MarineLord.